how it all started was in the 50s. Sigmund Freud brought the idea that the subconscious mind was more than thought. And scientists at that time were studying how appropriate stimuli could affect behavior and change the neural pathways, which changes thought, emotions, and behaviors. And we're going to talk a lot more about that throughout the time here as we go on. So the idea that there was a mind-body connection started to happen. And so in EMDR, kinesiology, behavioral therapy, they started using, muscle testing, tapping, different things. And they started seeing results from this. And so Roger Callahan was, testing the meridian points, and each meridian point has an endpoint in a part of the body. And so this lady who's like looking like she's freaking out in the water there, her name was Mary. And Mary was a client of Roger's who's a psychologist. And she was deathly afraid of swimming. And so they've tried thought field therapy for years, or not thought field therapy, but regular cognitive behavioral therapy, all different kinds of therapy, and she wasn't getting better. And so he said, well, let's try this. So he used the endpoint meridian that is underneath the eye is for the stomach, because she said, where do you notice this fear? And she said, in my stomach. So he had her tap on it, and like that, she was able to go into a pool and swim, which she'd never been able to do because of this extreme fear. So this opened up a lot of questions about, wow, how does this work? What's happening here? So over the years, from the 70s, he started integrating these points, and it was very complicated because he had to know every point of the endpoint to where it was going to react with the body. And so many people who trained under him produced their own modalities using different ways of using tapping. And one of those students was Gary Craig. So he came in at the grassroots. He studied neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and a lot of other modalities, but he was also an engineer. And so he figured that the 9 points that we're using today, that they do the same thing, and we don't have to know where it hits in the body. It's not effective because that's very complicated. So the simpler he made it. And so that's the algorithm we use today. And so on that, which I'm really excited about, the research and the development of things that have gone on, is there's over 300 research studies, review articles, and meta-analysis, and they're published in peer-reviewed journals. So the science just keeps building and building. Some of our favorite researchers are Peta Stapleton. This resource here, and I will give you a copy of the slides after. This resource here, she's got all kinds of stats and things on this free resource. It's a great little booklet that she's got, and every year I sent you guys the update that she does. There's lots of developments that are happening with that one, like she was talking about, that's with the Psychological Association. Every time we get to that, here's the data that proves it, they change the rules on us. So that's why it just keeps, it's a moving target, but she keeps persisting, which is great. David Feinstein, who is the husband to Donna Eden, he does a lot of research as well. He's a psychologist, and there's lots on the EFTI website, and also there's more on the website as well. So some of the highlights is in the UK, this NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care, they've noted that EFT is worthy of further research, that they have noticed a difference in it. So they are accepting of that. In 2017 in the US, the Vets Administration approved EFT as a generally safe therapy. And so they've been using it with PTSD and having a great success rate. I think an 85% success rate with 0 relapse, which is really good. And South Korea has just put it in to their medical system on their students using it. And then there's some meta health research on depression, anxiety, PTSD. So there is lots of research for those who want to have the research. If you're like me, just using it and knowing myself, that research is enough for me to know. It's nice that there is the proof, but it doesn't have to be. So these markers here, this is again from Dr. Peta's research. This is, I think, 15 minutes a day for 4 weeks, I believe. And so cortisol went down, the immune markers went up 113%, pain went down 57%, anxiety went down 40%, happiness 31%, cravings down 74%. So these, you know, she's got all kinds of data like this. This is really exciting that we can actually, you know, document these and see what's happening. So how do we talk about EFT? It depends, right? It depends who we're talking to. I remember when I first started here, it was like I was chasing everybody. You got to hear about this thing. And, you know, people would start running away from me because it was like Red Frank's hot sauce. You got to put it on everything. And they'd just be like, this crazy lady, just take, you know, let me get away. So it depends. Oh, hang on, my cat's biting me. It depends on who you're talking to, what your audience is. So, you know, we can talk about it in a somatic tool as traditional Chinese medicine. That's where it's taken from, right? It's a simple stress reduction tool to that can be self-administered to calm the mind and body. It's like acupuncture without the needles, right? Reduces stress symptoms and it's symptom management. You know, it's based in a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology. You know, it's brain science. There's so many ways we can talk about it. So we just have to take our time and allow, you know, get to know who our audience is and how they want to receive this information. Like my stepfather is a veterinarian surgeon who's very structured in the medical system. And so he, all the time he's asking me, what's the research? Is there still more research? It's funny, I did some tapping with him and because he wanted to try it out and he had a sore knee. And when it worked and he was like, oh, it's what just happened? Well, he still was very skeptical. And when he went home, he was, you know, well, I still don't believe it, but he was tapping every day. Or when he had pains, he was using the tapping, but wouldn't admit to that he was like, that it was effective. So you never know what you're going to get there. Okay, so discovery statement is the cause of negative emotions is a disruption in the body's energy system. So one premise of EFT is that the tapping on the acupressure points on the face and body address these energetic disruptions, while the words help keep the mind focused on a particular aspect or issue that's being addressed. And this allows the energy or of the issue to evolve and our experience of the issue to be eased. So the discovery statement is a foundational part of EFT. Of the EFT history and a starting point for discussion of the roots of emotional distress. So Gary Craig's belief was negative thoughts create energetic disruptions, which create negative emotion. And what we know today is that it's not the event that creates trauma, right? It's not the event or trauma that caused the relative negative emotion. It is the thought about the event or trauma that causes the energy imbalance and causes the negative emotion. Now, what we know too today is it's not even the negative thought, because our body processes, you know, I think it's like 11 billion bits, or 11 million bits of information per second, and it translates 50 bits of information per second. So we're getting a lot more information in our body than we push out. And what this does is it allows each of us to create a negative thought or a story around what it is we're feeling, we're sensing, we're seeing. That's what creates an energy disruption, is how we translate that in our body. So for this training, we are going to talk about negative and positive emotions or thoughts. But what we know today, so for EFTI, we need to know we're always talking about negative or positive. I don't like to use the negative or positive because it's just energy, right? Energy is a form, everything's energy. So it's either, you know, I guess a positive energy or negative energy, or a low energy or high energy. So, but for our purposes, we will be calling it negative or positive. And how each individual perceives and process what happens will be different. You know, a song, a smell, a sight, a taste, you know, something you see in the environment, words, phrases can trigger a response from your past. And each experience is unique because what will trigger me will not have the same meaning for you. And so that's why these discovery statements are important for us to find what is the disruption in your client's energy system or in your own energy system. So there again, it's energy is disrupted energy that happens when we have this shutdown of our energy, or they're calling it negative thoughts. It's not just thoughts that create the shutdown. Tapping on negative clears disruptions that trigger the neurological, chemical, and hormonal and the cognitive changes that happen in our body. Because it creates a chemical reaction, that's what creates the blockage when we have the meaning behind it. So when energy is balanced, the blocked emotions around the memories and disturbances are released. So that's what the tapping does. It's releasing this negative energy, allowing the flow to continue so that we are healthy again.